STAX is an awesomely engaging interactive that shows 20 years of investing in just 20 minutes. Hi, my name is Amanda Volts, and I'm a personal finance teacher at St. Clair High School in St. Clair, Michigan. And I am going to give you some tips on how you can play the interactive in the game STAX with your students and your classroom. So STAX is located in NGPF's arcade. In the arcade section is where all of their interactives and their games are located, and STAX is the one I'm going to give you some tips on today, which is a way for them to apply their investing knowledge. So when you're playing STAX, I think that you could do it a couple different ways. I've played STAX a couple times with my classes, and I've always used it at the end of my investing unit. So after students have some basic knowledge about investing, and they know what a mutual fund is, a stock, an index fund, and just some of the basic bond investments, I always play at the end. But I have heard that some teachers will play both at the beginning of their unit and the end of the unit, and they've had a lot of success with that as well. STAX can be intimidating when you first open it and when you first get into the interactive, and I'll tell you that it is a fast-paced game. It's 20 minutes where students can see how their investments will grow over that period of time. And I am very much a planner teacher, where I kind of want to know how things are going to work before that I actually introduce it to my students. And my advice to you, that if you're like me and you want to plan and you're nervous about doing with this interactive with your students because you're not sure how they will do and how it'll work, is just do it. I just jumped in and did it. I was a little nervous at first, and I'm like, oh, should I do it with my students? There seems to be a lot to this interactive, but if you just do it with your students, they catch on in the first couple minutes, and they have a lot of fun with it. So what students are introduced to in the STAX Interactive is they're introduced to 7 different types of investments. So they will have options to invest in a CD, they'll have options to invest in an index fund, and they'll have options to invest in stock in 7 different types. And you don't have to necessarily teach your students about all 7 of those before they play the game. So for example, one of the investment types is a commodity, or they can invest in gold or pork or a commodity. And my students really don't know much about that, but they kind of caught on to it as the game was played. So when you get into the STAX game, which the website is Build Your STAX, you have 2 options. You can play in a group, which means your whole class will compete against each other, or you can have the students play alone. So if you are a little nervous about it and you're not sure that your students are going to grasp the concepts, because you have to gauge your own class and whether or not you think they're going to be able to, jump right in and do it. If you're a little nervous about how the game is rolled out, have them play alone once. So they can play an individual game, which would be 20 minutes of just them versus the computer. And then you could play as a whole class where the whole class competes against each other. So if I click on the play alone game, it's going to give them directions as they go through. So I have 20 years to make some money in my investments, and so it does play out 20 years in 20 minutes. By the way, there are 35 years of data in STAX, so if the kids play a couple times, they're not going to get the same time frame. So you can play it multiple times in your classroom, and I promise that if you do it with your students, they're going to want to play again and again. I played it with my students, and then on some of our extra days, can we play STAX again? Like, they really like it. They're really engaged with this interactive. So they have some pocket cash that they're trying to invest, and the 7 different investments will appear on their screen. And again, it gives them all of these directions that they'll read through as they start the game. And then they're keeping a leaderboard. Now one area, I'm going to click ready so it kind of gets us into the game here. So one of the first investments, that we have is a savings account. So if they haven't learned much about savings accounts, they can read the brief information. Okay, I got it. And then the game will start playing. And I have some pocket cash over here, and then I'm trying to build some net worth. And right now, it's just me versus the computer. The computer is only investing in one thing, and it's investing all of its money into an index fund. So the goal is to try and beat the computer in this individual game that I'm playing. So I can take some of my money and make a deposit into a savings account, and maybe I'm going to put $2,000. Let me try and get it in there. $2,000 into that savings account and deposit it. And I can see the leaderboard here that the computer is beating me, and the computer is investing purely in index funds. So It's a very big learning lesson in this game, and I'm just going to let it kind of play here for a minute so you can see the new investments and how they pop up. It's a great learning lesson to teach students that average is okay. Putting your money in an index fund almost always wins. And almost always in these games, you're going to see, do you see down here at the bottom? Let me shift my screen just a little bit so you can see it. I have a new investment opportunity that I can unlock. So I now could put my money into a CD. And again, my students know maybe a little bit about CDs, so they can read through the information, and then, okay, I got it. And now I have a CD that I can now buy or put some money into. I'm just going to let this kind of roll. As you see, the computer is beating me, 15,000 to 12,000 as far as net worth. And again, the computer's investing in index funds. And when you play this with your students, the computer is always near the top. You will have a couple students who in the end will end up beating the computer, and those are the lucky few. So it's not a game, STAX is not a game to teach them that you're trying to actively trade and beat the market. STAX is a game for them to realize the connection that if you just sit back and put your money into index funds, you're most always going to win, which is true for real life. So the computer almost always ends up at the top of the leaderboard. When you play as a group, here you go, I got another investment opportunity so I can unlock that. Now I could put my money into index funds. So I can read through the information. For this demo video, I'm just doing it pretty quick. Okay, I got it. And now I have other options that I can put my money into. So I'm going to actually close out of this for just a second and show you the difference between that and then playing as a group. So if you play as a group, that means your whole class is going to play together and compete against each other. So when you play in a group, you as the teacher, and I have a smartboard in my classroom, so I will create the group. And then my students, when they join in, they'll go to buildyourstax.com and they'll join my group. So I'm going to create my group here, and it gives me this code that I can then display on my smartboard. I'm just copying it right now. So if I open a new incognito tab here and I buildyourstax.com, which is what I would tell my students to go to, and buildmystax.com, and then tell them, okay, we're going to play in a group. Go ahead and join my group. And then I put the group code in, which I just copied and pasted, and then their first name and last initial, and join in. And then we're going to have a leaderboard. Again, it's giving them all that information that we saw before, which I'm just kind of scanning through, and it's waiting on the host. So I'm flipping between screens here a little bit. So I'm going to see all my students down here at the bottom, and I can start the game when I'm ready. So it's waiting on the other players. This is the teacher portal that you're looking at right now. When I go to the actual student portal, see how it's giving them that savings account? Like it's giving them all of the content that you need to know on the upfront, and when they got it, the game starts. So then you can see all of the leaderboard, and this pretending it's all of my students there, is listed. And again, they're competing against the computer, which is the index fund. They're investing all of the money, the computer is, in an index fund. At any time in the game, you can pause it, where you can, okay, I want to give a little direction on this information. You can always pause the game from the teacher perspective. So I put this teacher one that you're looking at right now on like my smartboard where students can view all of that information, but the student is still looking at that same screen like I showed you before, where they're putting money and depositing money into the savings account and investing, and they also have a leaderboard there. So the learning lessons of this is that the computer most always is going to win, but you are going to have a couple lucky little students that end up beating the computer. And I always try to make a point of that with the whole class of, okay, Johnny, you beat the computer. You beat it by quite a bit. How did you do it? And a lot of students will do you see I have a CD that pops up? So here's the student screen. And then if I flip back over, here is the teacher screen. So this is what I'd have on the smartboard. I can resume this automatically, or you can wait for everybody. So typically what I'll do is I'll just resume it, and then the student can then see this screen right here, which they can go through the directions, okay, I got it, and they can keep playing. So as a teacher, you can keep the ball moving and keep it rolling, and then unexpected events also happen. My cat has gone viral, so I actually received $500 that's going to go into my pocket cash right here. So I keep this one, the teacher portal, on the board. Going back to that lucky couple few, the point is, I always have them, how did you end up beating the computer? And some of them will say that it was just luck. Like, I don't even know how I did it. But most of them are actively trading. I mean, they are like sweating. They are working. They are going and trying and pulling money in and putting money out and being very risky with their money to beat the computer. So the lesson is not to beat the market, but the lesson is that if you just invest in the market and invest in index funds, you're always going to end up at the top. So a few tips in implementing this. Number one is don't be scared. Just do it with your students and they'll have fun. They might be a little confused. Here we go. See, we must have another new investment. We now have the index fund from the teacher or the student screen. So I can just resume that and keep the game moving as a teacher. The tips I have for you is to do it with your students, because after a couple minutes, they'll figure it out, and by the end, they will have a lot of fun. And it's a great learning lesson about investing and investing in index funds. Number two is, with this leaderboard, I always think display it on your board. And I, as a teacher, really try to move them along verbally. So I will do like, oh, the computer's beating everyone. Oh, Amanda snuck up. Oh, so-and-so's at the bottom. Like, I will make a bunch of commentary for them to kind of feel some competition and feel some pressure as they're playing through. And that helps. Sitting and playing the game in silence is not nearly as fun as pointing out when the students jump on the leaderboard. And the other thing I do is I walk around as the students are playing, and I'll kind of look at their screens. And if they have, like, here, I'm back on a student example right here. If I see like this student has 34, oh, I got a couple things. Here's my stocks. Now I can invest in some stocks here also. So this is the student. I'm the student on here, so I can see it. Oh, you got $34,000. Invest that money. Invest the money. So I will go around kind of cheerlead them through the simulation as I point at their screens, and that also pushes them in. So you can see now you can buy and sell individual stocks in this, and we're on year 3 of 20. So again, I'm going to flip back to my teacher board. Teacher board just has the leaderboard, and Amanda has taken a little bit of a lead. So STAX is awesome. I encourage you to do it with your students. I hope this video gives you a little insight on how to do it and a few tips of incorporating it into your classroom. It will take about 20 minutes. And then after the game on NGPF's website, so going back to that arcade, they do have a reflection worksheet here. So my classes are mostly 12th graders. I teach a year-long personal finance class, and I've always incorporated STAX at the end of my investing unit. So they have a little confidence and a little knowledge about these investments before going in. And we'll play STAX for the 20 minutes. And then I always use this reflection worksheet right here so they can answer some reflection and have some discussion about the game.